All right, great. So, hi everyone. My name is Joshua Alade, and I'm excited to be having a conversation today with Koen, who is from the Netherlands. Koen is actually a policy officer for Team Youth, Education and Work at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. And in this position, his main focus has been on meaningful youth participation, while youth, peace, and security, and the Sport for Development program. Before joining the ministry in 2023, Quinn worked for several human rights organizations based in Belgium and the Netherlands, focusing mainly on minority rights, atrocity, crimes, and labor rights. Koen studied history with a focus on conflict studies and human rights at Utrecht University and holds a Master in International Development and International Conflict and Security from the University of Kent, Brussels School of International Studies. So currently, we are so excited to have you on this conversation. We'll be talking about creating opportunities for meaningful youth engagement. Do you want to say a few words before we go on?
Yeah, of course. To start with, big thanks to you and your organization for inviting me to talk also in this position a bit about the role of youth in sustainable development, which of course it's a huge topic, but a very important topic given the many challenges that we're facing. I guess as a global society in the next few decades, and the Netherlands in that also believes that youth are really at the core of finding solutions to these issues. So very happy to discuss that with you today.
Awesome, and I like that you mentioned that the Kingdom of Netherlands is really prioritizing young people, and as an organization for us, we believe that for great change to happen, young people need to be in that process, and for young people to be in that process, they need to understand what their power is. We need to also be able to develop their capacity to be able to lead change, and we focus a lot around systems thinking and youth-led change at the Nigerian Youth SDGs Network. And you really have an interesting background. Can you please tell us more about your background and how you got to be involved in youth leadership and advocacy?
Yeah, no, of course. I think it's clear from my background that I've always been involved in issues of human rights, labor rights, inclusion, these types of topics. And I think this position that I have now, in which I focus on youth, really fits with that approach that finding solutions to issues or to wrongdoings really also requires inclusivity. So that means that you adopt a whole society approach in which every member of society has a voice and is able to influence also policy making processes. So I think it fits really well with my background. And as you noticed, especially as the Netherlands, we really put youth at the center of our policies. That's why we launched in 2020 our Youth at Heart strategy. And that's basically what we're working with today. So this strategy really, of course, it's not a strategy that's standing alone. Like, it really follows this development, this global development that you also mentioned before, where mainly on the African continent, but also in the Middle East, many, if not most, countries have an incredibly young population. And to keep up with this development, we, as the Netherlands, have identified the need to indeed look more at what young people in these countries need and what they require to increase their well-being and to have prospects for a good future for themselves. So that's why we launched this strategy, and that's also why, as I said, youth is really at the core of our foreign policy of the Netherlands.
Thank you so much for sharing, Corinne. Wadi is here, and I would say now let's have like a really awesome conversation together. Since Wadi is already on the call. Hi, Wadi. How are you?
Hi, Joshua. I'm fine.
And thank you so much for joining the call. And before you joined, Koen was talking about his experience, his background basically. And if you could also share about your background, how you come about this work around youth leadership and advocacy, that would be great to know.
Okay, thank you, Joshua, and thank you to everyone for accepting my apologies. Hi, Koen, and everyone on the call. Permit me to sit or stand on already existing protocol. So my name is Wadi Ben-Hirki. I'm from Nigeria, and this question I love to answer it because it just helped me to reflect on my journey. Many times when we do the work we do, we tend to sometimes forget where we're coming from or why we even started in the first place, especially when we encounter challenges. So for me, I was always told that I've always been a very, very vocal or audacious person. I always used to question things, even from primary school, secondary school, and being from northern Nigeria, being a girl, we know all these, stereotypes. Oh, a girl to be this way and that way, and I seem to always go against what society expected. And fast forward, it led me here, which I'm thankful for. And I'm always thankful that my parents and my immediate community did not try to shut that part of me up or clip my wings, in quote. But I think the turning point for me was the period where, of course, growing up, I heard a lot about child marriage. I saw people married off. One of the first-hand experiences I had was my best friend in primary school, whom, when we returned to primary 6, I didn't see her in school. And my teacher told me she was married off because her father made her a collateral. He took a loan or something from somebody I couldn't pay off, so he gave her to the man as the collateral. So then I didn't really understand the implication. For me, it was just weird. Like, I was 10 years old then, and my friend married off at 10. It didn't sit well with me, but I didn't even really understand the implication as much until I grew up and saw that was a practice that continued to go on. And then in my third year university, that was when Chibok girls, were kidnapped. Being from Northeast Nigeria myself, it hit me hard because to people, they're like statistics. When you read reports or you watch the news, you hear 100 and something people were kidnapped and all, and it seems like numbers. But these are real human beings with names, with families, with lives, like yourself. So it really, yeah, exactly. Thank you. With dreams. And that has just been cut short. And for me, look at me, I was in my third year. I was around the same age range as them. And I just sat down, like, imagine it could have been anybody, really. So that was what really pushed me to start the work I do. And I just started advocacy, started my own organization. And I think whenever I feel down, I just go back to the vision, but why did I even start? And seeing the lives that have been touched and seeing other young people doing the same, I think that keeps me going. I hope this has answered your question. Thank you.
Absolutely, Wadi. Always an inspiration, and thank you so much for sharing your story. And just to move on, I would ask you guys if you could tell me in 50 seconds or 1 minute, what would you say meaningful youth engagement means to you? And I'm going to ask Koen first.
Yeah, of course. No, I mean, meaningful youth engagement, or as we say, as the term that we use in the Netherlands is meaningful youth participation. That's really at the core of what we want to achieve as the Netherlands, also in our foreign policy. Because we still often see that youth are involved or engaged in a more or less tokenistic way, where they're just put on the stage just to have like a youth voice on the stage without really listening to youth. And for us, this means the word meaningful means working with youth as partners, not just as beneficiaries or not just as a puppet to put on stage, but to work with them as partners and to really give them the platform to make their voices heard. One way in which we're doing that ourselves, for instance, is to bring, in this case, Dutch youth with us in our official delegations, for instance, to summits or to conferences at the United Nations. So that's also a way in which we try to apply that in our own way. I mean, I can speak for 10 minutes about how we can make youth participation meaningful, but that's just I think the core at what we're trying to achieve.
Thank you so much for sharing, and I agree. Wadi?
Thank you very much. I think Koen has said it all, but for me, a few things to add. For me, meaningful youth engagement in a nutshell is using the concept of nothing about us without us, where young people, we make up 50% or more of world population, depending on what the age range for youth is in different countries and contexts. But meaningful youth engagement, is nothing about us without us, where most of the challenges that the world is facing, young people are the ones at the receiving end. So we have to be an integral part of the conversations and even the actionable steps being taken. And like you said, not using tokenism, but us being part of the process from, the design to monitoring and evaluation to implementation and all the processes, where we are at the center of it. And because we're not just the future, we're the present. And so our voices should really count, especially where and when it matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Wadi. And I like that Koen started with saying we have to show example. We have to show young people what's supposed to happen, taking them along with us as delegates to different conferences so they understand the influence that they have, and you streamlining it down to say it is starting from the beginning. What's the idea? Is it something that is being spoken of by young people? Are young people developing the plan? Are they part of the plan? Are they part of the implementation? Are they also part of the evaluation? How much are you taking young people along, or how much are you willing to go along with young people? That's meaningful youth engagement, and I love the alignment between the both of you. And my next question we go to Koen just to speak more around the Youth at Heart initiative. I know it started in 2020. Curious to know, is this as a result of the pandemic? If you could tell us more about this program and the success so far, how have you been able to engage with young people both in the Netherlands across the world on this very important initiative?
Yeah, of course. I think you mentioned an important period, and I think that's one of the main reasons why we chose to launch to prepare we had been preparing the Youth at Heart strategy, of course, well before 2020, before the outbreak of the pandemic. But I think the pandemic really showed that, really underlined the need to have such a youth strategy, because I think, as you know, like the pandemic hit youth especially hard. Because of the limits that it put on their education, on their social life, on their opportunities to find employment. So that I think that underlined the need to have such a youth strategy. Now, in short, our Youth at Heart strategy, first of all, we developed it also in close collaboration with young people. So, for instance, we consulted around, I think, 1,200 people worldwide, young people worldwide, to ask them, okay, what do you need from the Netherlands? What would you like for us to do in your countries? And what came out of that is that youth really needed, and maybe that's good to highlight, our focus areas in which we applied the Youth at Heart strategy. So to say, it's mainly Africa and the Middle East. And the young people from these countries really, what came out of those consultations is that they are, at the one hand, struggling with education, finding decent education, but then afterwards, once they have an education, finding a job at the labor market that matches the education they have received. So what we're trying to do as the Netherlands is in our programming, is to kind of work in this nexus between education and work. So at the one hand, we try to, give young people access to quality and inclusive education, but at the same time also make sure that the skills that they're being taught are also applicable to the local labor market. So to also offer youth employability in a sense that it matches the education they've received. Another thing, how we try to reach youth worldwide, we try to do that in various ways. One of the ways that I've been most involved with here in The Hague is through our International Youth Advisory Committee. So as the Netherlands, we have this committee more or less since 3 years, I believe. And this committee is made up out of 10 young people from Africa and the Middle East who give us, as the Netherlands, policy advice. So my colleagues here in The Hague or my colleagues at the embassies, they can reach out to us and say, hey, we are working on this policy, or working on this program, or we're having this event coming up. We would really like to have the perspectives and the involvement of young people. How do we go about that? And then, of course, we can lay that, or we can then involve our International Youth Advisory Committee. So that's a way in which we are trying to get those local perspectives when we're like on the policy making side here in the Netherlands. So that's for me, that's one of the most meaningful ways in which I've been involved in meaningful youth participation, because working with these young people is just so inspiring. Like the energy and the innovative ideas that they have, it's just amazing. And I mean, I have to admit also really like sometimes a fresh perspective compared to, you know, like kind of the policy environment here in The Hague. So it's always such a pleasure to work with youth, and the energy and yeah, the commitment that they have to really making this world a bit better. That's it's really inspiring also for me personally and professionally. So yeah, of course, happy to delve more into that later.
Thank you so much, Koen. And I love the way that the Netherlands is so intentional about youth leadership, and the International Youth Advisory Committee, I think, is one of the foremost youth ways of engaging young people, which I really like. I know that there are a few Nigerians who have been on that committee. And I also love how you guys, how the Kingdom of Netherlands actually domesticates this in every country where you are in. This is really very important. And thank you so much for sharing. And I'm going to be asking you, Wadi. So Koen has mentioned how it would be to influence policies within a formal system where there's this intentionality to make things happen with young people. And if you could talk me through, like, if you could share with your own background what happened in your third year in university. You heard about the Chibok girls, and you felt, oh, this is gender-based violence. Somebody needs to speak up about this. How can young people who do not have platforms like the Youth at Heart, how can they effectively influence policy process, whether it's at the local, national, or international level?
Thank you. And it was really amazing hearing, the work that the Netherlands is doing. Thank you, Koen, for shedding light, on that. And it's always important when young people, have platforms, right? Because fresh perspectives, how vibrant we are, how passionate we are, and even the energy we bring. And I'll say there are many ways in which young people can be part of this process at local, national, regional, and international levels. Firstly, I would say is for young people to find their niche. There are many problems going on in the world, right? And you cannot solve it all. In as much as you want to, you have to accept that. And I like that the Sustainable Development Goals have helped to streamline many problems into 17 parts, right? So if the sense of urgency you feel is quality education, SDG 4, or peace, justice, and strong institutions, 16, or gender equality or climate action, many things, just understand when you find that niche, then do your research. I feel like one of the issues that young people somewhat have is that we don't necessarily read as much, or we don't research or stay updated. We only want to use passion, and passion is not enough. You need to understand what's happening, how to go about it, research, and then find platforms in your vicinity or your community that you can be a part of. Not everyone will be a founder or leader or something, all those types. But there are many people that you can say for free, Joshua, that there are many people that are working with you to hold it down, even in different areas. So there are some people that are in the comms department, some people are in the community building, some people stakeholder engagement, some people know how to go to those villages. So just find the area that you love and you have experience in and serve there. So research, find platforms, and then there are campaigns going on, whether by NGOs or even government agencies themselves. Attend such events, and just know how, what ways you can contribute best. Someone you are inspired by or you look up to maybe doing it in one way doesn't mean you will necessarily do it that same way. Get what how will I put it, your strong areas. For me, there are times where I want to go out and speak up, and there are times where I'm just writing articles and putting it out there. So I think it depends on what that issue is, then you know how to go about it. But you don't want to show up. What gets you in a room is different from what sustains you in a room. So what may get you in a room is the network or somebody or by luck in quotes. But when you get into the room, what sustains you there is what you have upstairs and what you've garnered by research, by attending events, and even having mentors. So those are some of the ways in which I feel we can effectively make change, whether academically or even in field work. And as you continue to grow, you find more ways that are applicable to you as a person. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. I love that. I love the part that you talked about finding your own, doing your own research, and that's punchline. What got you in the room might not be enough to sustain you in that room. I think that's something that every young person needs to really, really take to heart. And I'm going to ask you a follow-up question, which would be if you could share, like, in your advocacy work, you getting into some rooms. Like, I know you've done amazing work. You've seen the Dalai Lama. You've all of this, and if you what's the biggest challenge that you face as a young person in your work?
So thank you, Joshua. And it just shows how far we've come. And I was even thinking while preparing for this, I was like, wow, it's been years since, we met, and look at the journey, look at the progress, and even some of the challenges, because, many times on LinkedIn, we like to come up and say, I'm pleased to announce this, and I'm happy to say I've been, but we don't always say the other sides, the challenges, which I feel sometimes it's good to share because it will help to even encourage other people who may feel they're alone on the journey. When they see that, Joshua Alade, that they look up to, also has had some losses in quotes, I think it will encourage them to know, oh wow, I'm not alone, and it can actually get better. Sorry to digress, but it just came to my mind. But back to like some of the challenges. One of it is I don't really like to use buzzwords like racism or ageism or all this or gender, but some of these things I've experienced them in one way or the other, where I started at a pretty young age. Of course, I had a few years recently that I took breaks for personal reasons, but I started very young, and I got into some rooms where I was either the youngest or the only African or all those things, and sometimes you just feel like scared. It's not like people are trying to come at you, but because nobody else looks like you, there's this thing where you just feel, am I sure I even belong here? But you have to, at that point, remind yourself that you actually do. And then remind yourself that you are the one there, but you're speaking and representing millions of other people who may not be there. So you have to remind yourself not to make that opportunity count. So part of it is, maybe different factors come into play to maybe hinder me from getting opportunities. Or sometimes being Nigerian, sometimes it's a great thing where you're like, wow, Nigeria, you're proud. But sometimes because of the stereotypes people hear, you go to places and you say I'm Nigerian, and the next thing they're saying, oh, is it true you're into this? Or is it, all the negative things. And there are a few opportunities that I've applied for, and even before selection, they asked me to submit documents like, drug clearance, police character, and many other, documents that I probably couldn't get, and maybe I lost the opportunity. So some of these things that we don't talk about, they hinder us. But on the flip side, the reminder that these factors exist encourages me to actually, rise above and beyond and against all odds, and even push harder. Some of the challenges could also be funding issues, where maybe you see an opportunity and you don't meet the requirements because they expect you to already have a particular amount secured, which you don't yet have. But how you navigate those things is sometimes working as a consortium with other organizations, and it builds more strength and more credibility. And I always tell people, even if your vision is you want to get to this point, you start little by little. So you could actually look out for smaller opportunities and smaller fundings that, when you build the blocks, it will now get you access to the bigger ones. So these are some of and another thing is sometimes personal challenges. It could be health, it could be responsibilities and demands that could hinder your work, which we don't always talk about. Some things come and you don't plan for them, and they actually cause serious strains on your progress. But because of life's uncertainties, like they say, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. So some of these are my personal experiences, but thankfully, gradually I've been able to surmount. And lastly, your community, be it family, be it friends, be it colleagues and mentors. These are people who hold you down, who keep you accountable, and who also support you, especially when you feel like you're losing the vibe, you're losing the power, you're losing the vision. You have people who are accountability partners and support systems who keep you going. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wadi. And I love how you started with your journey. I understand all of those personal challenges, visa, oh no. Like sometimes when I have to travel, I have to start thinking like this visa thing. And these are the challenges that we face. Also the funding. You are so passionate about the work you are doing, and you're saying, how do I get this thing started? And sometimes you could even get depressed. And I remember our days as one champions, we want to do work, but there's no funding. And you're like, I'm passionate about this. And that's why I signed up to this program. Yeah, thank you for sharing this and reminder about the importance of community. So I'm going to be asking Koen if maybe if you could talk through ways whereby the Youth at Heart strategy is supporting young change makers like Wadi, if you could just speak broadly about how young people can actually overcome the challenges that they face when it comes to their advocacy work.
Well, first of all, just really wanted to appreciate what you said, Wadi, about having to talk about the challenges that young people face. I think it's incredibly important to kind of get an understanding of what is holding young people back in making their voices heard and being understood. So I think that's really important part. And I want to kind of link that also to what you said earlier about young people getting informed and doing research. I think there is one of the ways in which, we as policymakers, but I think society as a whole, that means also the private sector, but also on a regional and local level, to make the information that youth need to be informed, to make it also accessible and understandable. So that means that you present information in a certain youth-friendly way. And I think, especially us as policymakers, we can really learn to do that more and better, because of course we like to create these big documents with technical and difficult language. But if you want to reach youth, if you want to inform youth, you need to also present this information in a way that is understandable to them, and that is that is the information that they can then work with. So that's, at the one hand, creating this youth-friendly information, but then also making information accessible to youth, because a lot of documents are difficult to find, or we're not making them public. So to also share that kind of information with youth, because one of the prerequisites of meaningful youth participation is to have indeed youth involved. As what we want to do as the Netherlands, to also involve youth on a more national or local level. I was already talking about our International Youth Advisory Committee. Actually, I think by now it's more than 20 embassies, again, mainly in Africa and the Middle East, have set up their local youth advisory committees. So we see that where we started with this International Youth Advisory Committee, and then showed this example to our embassies, they said, hey, this is such a great way of involving also local youth, and also doing this on our own in our embassies to kind of get an even better understanding of what is happening in this country, and to actually have these youth perspectives and to be able to work with them. So just seeing that network of youth advisory committees growing over these past 3 years, that's an amazing development to see. And the feedback that we're getting, both from my colleagues at the embassies, but also from the young people that are involved in these advisory committees, is just really it's really amazing to see. And I hope we can in the end, every embassy worldwide can have such a youth advisory committee. So that's of course something that we're advocating for. And then just lastly, I think many of the challenges that youth are facing, I think we can overcome them by kind of also changing the mindset that a lot of people worldwide still have about youth. Because nowadays there's still so many negative perceptions of young people, as troublemakers, of young people that are only wanting social change and only causing problems. Whereas I think we really must start seeing youth as positive social actors, young people that have these brilliant ideas, not just on local community level, but brilliant ideas about these big issues that we're facing, and climate change is definitely one of them. I think youth are definitely at the forefront of climate change, of issues or ways to address climate change, that is. But we really need to start seeing youth as these positive change makers, not as troublemakers, but as positive change makers. And in that way, I think you can start giving youth access to positions of power and to leadership positions. And I think that's what's required to then think about next steps, how we can involve youth even better and more.
Thank you so much, Koen, and I totally agree with you. Research is important, like you understanding the local context, what's happening, also finding ways to bring your local youths, especially those who do not have access to internet, to bring in their voices to issues is really important. And then that mindset change is something that we're also doing at NG Youth SDGs. We're currently working on a project to get young people involved in the next in the nationally determined contributions that are up for review in February 2025. So because again, climate change is about the present and the future of young people. So why shouldn't they be involved in the nationally determined contributions? Young people are not troublesome. It's just that the anger that their future is slipping away from their hands sometimes can get into your head and you want to do something. So seeing young people in a positive light, and that's where that education comes in, would be really very important. And then creating that support system as the Youth at Heart does. As we're winding down, I would want to ask Wadi to just share what advice would she give to young people who are passionate about contributing to the SDGs.
Thank you. I'm not one who is so great with advice because I'm like, am I sure? But yes, I would like to. It's so ironic because I like when people advise me, but I'm always so worried advising others. But from my own lived experience and what I've seen over the years, I would say that there are a few things that I would say. Firstly, I would say work with others. Of course, you have to be sure that your vision aligns, your core values and the things that drive you aligns, must not be exactly the same, but there should be, is it integrity, is it accountability, is it whatever it is, you look out for both people and institutions that, your vision and core values intertwine, and then work with them. I'm always one for collaborate, and it's not just for me a buzzword. It's like for real. I love to see opportunities to contribute to other people's work, especially when I'm able to, just work with others. You will learn and you keep going. And there's in numbers, there's unity in numbers. And at the end, when you look at it, we have somewhat the same goal for the future, right? A better world, a more sustainable world. You do it alone. No man is an island. So find ways to work with others, and then get informed. I would say get informed because everyone has access to, not everyone literally, but most young people are online and use social media platforms, but they don't know that same internet, they can access life-changing opportunities. So I would say sometimes what I do, especially over the years, I just go online and search for something that as it comes to my mind, and I just keep checking, and sometimes my mind is blown away as to the results I see. And some of these big opportunities, it's from searching, and I'm sure you can say the same, Joshua, and even many organizations. I know one thing you do, your organization, that I found really interesting on LinkedIn is you put up opportunities for people to apply, not just for your organization, but even other platforms. You say apply for this is open, and that's really brilliant. So people can search online and see life-changing opportunities. Another thing I'll say is serve, and I'll add a caveat. Many times young people are taking for granted and taking advantage of. So when you're serving, be aware of what the end goal is and so that people will not take you for granted or take advantage of you. But there's no harm in serving. I've served, many times people see you in big platforms and they think you just found yourself there, forgetting that you actually paid the price and you served. So I always add the caveat, be sure of where you're serving and whom you're serving, in quotes, but please serve. When there are opportunities, when there are outreach programs, you don't have to be the one leading it to show up. Just show up, volunteer, and know the opportunities that align with your purpose. That's why creating your niche is important. If you can have an idea of many subject matters, but you should be an expert. Can you still hear me? Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry, just wanted to be sure. So you can have knowledge about so many subject matters, but create or find the field that you're an expert in. Why? Because there are programs that come up on education, on peace building, on human rights. So if you're not knowledgeable, you don't have expertise in a particular one, you'll just be everywhere and nowhere. So I would say, even if you want to read blogs and be updated about everything that's happening, know the few areas that you are going to be, will I say, a thought leader or expert, or whatever the word is or title is in those areas. Create and nurture your path. And another advice is, even when things are not going well, it's okay to take a break. It's okay to re-strategize. It's okay to change the course of what you're doing, because many times people put us in a box, and when you find out that, oh, you want to do it this way now, or you want to make changes, you're scared how people will take it in. But it's okay to make changes sometimes. As life continues to evolve, you can also evolve with it. And then rewards come with responsibilities. You cannot expect to get all the rewards without paying the price and without being responsible. So with rewards come great responsibilities. So you should be one who people can vouch for and say, oh, this person, I know they will deliver. And because word of mouth referrals really go a long way. When people know that they can trust you to deliver, when people know that they can hold you to your word, you'll be shocked at how all these things come easier for you, because even in rooms that you are not in, there's someone there speaking for you. And lastly, learn when to say no. That is something I still struggle with. So I feel like a hypocrite in quote saying that, but I'm learning and it's helping me. Most times we burn out because we don't know when to take breaks. We don't know when to say, oh, I can't do this now, and all of that. In as much as you should keep showing up and serving, there are times that you should say, oh, this does not align with my vision, or this, I don't have the time yet for it, and all of that. So in as much as you want to keep pouring, you cannot pour from an empty cup. So there are times where you need to take steps back, retreat, and then come back fresher, stronger, and more vibrant. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wadi. I'm trying to be very conscious about time, so I'm going to just try to speed quickly to the last questions that we have, and this would be just picking up from you, like someone who doesn't want to give advice, and you're giving like 7 or 8 right now. I love the fact where you say you can't pour from an empty cup, learning to say no. I love how you talked about rewards coming with responsibility is really very important, and the importance of service. I have served, and then they've served me breakfast before, and I wanted to cry. So yeah, it was crazy. I remember then, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to do this to someone else. I'm going to ask Koen to share with the strategy of the youth at heart. How would you advise governments? For instance, in Nigeria, we have the first ever Ministry of Youth Development in our country. How would you probably encourage governments to work with young people with regards to encouraging and supporting youth leadership, basically?
Yeah, of course. No, I mean, now, of course, I don't know the national context in Nigeria that well, but I think in general for basically every government worldwide, and will certainly also within the multilateral system, it really starts with just giving youth its seat at the table, like as a standard practice, not as something that you always just come up with at the last moment. Oh, where is the young person that we need to have, or at the last moment we need to consult the young person what they think about this, when the idea has already been developed and is already almost set to start. So again, then we come back to this concept of making it meaningful. That means, as you alluded to before, involving them throughout the entire process of what you're trying to do, during the brainstorming phase, implementation, monitoring, evaluation, you name it, any stage, you need to be involving youth to make sure that this whole process is meaningful. another way in which you can really foster an environment, and that I guess also links to what Wadi said before, you have to be considerate of the mental health of young people. We as policymakers often have, a certain network of young people that we like to, approach, that we like to give a seat at the table. But you have to be mindful, especially if you're talking about subjects that are emotional, or that have that are burdensome also for your mental health. You have to make sure that you are able to take that into account, to protect young people from kind of overburdening them with questions, with requests, with flying them out to wherever now and then. So you have to be mindful of that. Similarly, also offering them protection if they need it. Some youth come from countries where they might face retaliation for speaking out. So you have to also be mindful of giving them the protection if they decide to speak out. And especially if you work with youth from all over the world, I think that's a really important one, especially for youth that are from countries in conflict, or like these types of environment. It's really, I think, important to be mindful of that. And then thirdly, I often hear that we need to empower youth. I don't think we necessarily need to empower youth. I think youth are empowered. They know what they need. They often also know how to get what they need. We just need to make sure that we give them the access and the platform to raise their voices, and to really give them a seat at the table. Because as I said, youth are already pretty much empowered, but we just need to, and that's why I really like your question, Joshua. We need to provide a supportive environment so they can fulfill their potential. I think that's the last thing that is incredibly important for us as policymakers.
Thank you so much to the both of you. As we wrap up, I would want you to just tell me in 1 minute, like, what are your hopes for the future of youth leadership? I know it's somehow, but what are your hopes for the future of youth leadership?
Would you like me to go first, or would you want Koen to go?
Anyone can go first.
Please go ahead,
Okay, thank you. So I think my hopes, I'm positive. There are parts of me where sometimes I'm just feeling negative and, laid down by all these issues, especially when you go and read the news and see what's happening. But I think I'm more positive because when you see what young people are doing all around the world, I find it really audacious. Sometimes I'm like, wow, these people are really serious. Sometimes even putting their lives on the line, which most times I would rather not. Your life shouldn't have to be at risk, but unfortunately, we see that happen. But I'm very hopeful because young people are no longer sitting at the sidelines. We're actually taking power. We're actually saying, enough is enough. And like Joshua said many times, it's from a place of frustration. I hope that we find that balance and get policymakers and leaders internationally to work with us and see that we're not fighting against each other. We can work together. But I'm more positive because I'm seeing young people taking the boat by the horn, literally. And I'm just hopeful. I think that's what I've said. I'm hopeful, and I feel more positive than I used to feel a few years ago. Thank you.
And from my side, I fully concur. I mean, just working with youth actually does stem me really, really hopeful. Just seeing the ways in which young people find the ways that young people find to express themselves, to make their voices heard, to also work together. I'm seeing that more and more where youth organizations or youth-led organizations from country A are finding similar organizations from country B. I see these global movements of youth that are speaking out on climate change. So that really stems me hopeful. And I know, as I said, that young people have the knowledge and the power and the energy to really make a change. They're already making a change even. So I'm incredibly hopeful. But I think what I said before, we need a little change of mindset, especially amongst policymakers, where we just see the potential that young people have. And I'm very hopeful that this happens. I'm seeing the positive progress, and I'm really hopeful for what the future holds for young people.
All right, so I'm going to stop here and thank you both for this very insightful conversation on youth leadership and creating spaces for youth-led change across the world. Special thanks to you all for your engagement so far.